If you could find one thing that makes your adult life interesting, what would you pick? Maybe something from your childhood, like a game that you could make into your hobby? In this episode, I will be refreshing your memory with several games that you might have engaged in to keep your days memorable and fun, and I hope by the end of it, you will challenge yourself to live wholesomely like a child, because that is how to truly be alive. And starting off strong is archery, or should I say DIY archery, because you have to make everything from scratch, which is the joy of doing this. Thankfully for me, my arrow was already made. We call it chelostit, and normally it's made by boys when they get circumcised during the holidays. It was easy for me to get everything because we have these things at home. It's the basics of living in the village. I had to make my bow, and this needs a strong, malleable stick and a strong string. The string I found was so strong that it actually hurt my hand when I tried to pull it. That's what you need so that you don't end up breaking it. Take the string and tie it to both ends of your stick while slightly curving the stick so that it can have that bow shape. This needs a lot of strength, and mine didn't end up how I imagined it, but it worked. Once you have your bow and arrow, go ahead and aim for whatever. This was so fun to do, and I definitely want to do more archery in the future. And then came high jump. This was one of those things I hated doing when I was younger, and maybe it's because we had to do it in groups, and many times peer pressure would push others into overdoing themselves and breaking their bones. All in all, this just needs 3 sticks. Slightly pierce 2 of them into the ground. It is helpful if you have sticks that have already been sharpened a little to make it easier to stand. And the other one becomes the measure of the height you will be jumping. The fun in this is the change in height. The best way is not to overestimate yourself and end up with broken limbs. Pace yourself, and then gradually, as months go by, you'll find it easier to climb upwards and maybe even find yourself in an Olympic game. Another jumping game is jump rope, which if you have watched Squid Game, you would probably have eerie flashbacks because of the song that was used during that scene. This just needs a rope, and I went shopping amongst farm tools for one that is normally used to tie cows or firewood. I had my brother help me to rotate it on one end, and I tied it to a post on the other. Doing this after a very long time was actually amazing, and it got me out of breath severally. Back in the day, we used to play this in groups all day long, and actually, this is why many of us weren't stressed about anything. We need to go back to the basics of our childhood because we had all the answers for how to actually live. When I decided to let go of the societal paths to success that had been drummed into my head, I realized that life is made of the simple things like these games, which were also a way of bringing people together naturally and not scheduling when to meet your friends that we are seeing becoming the norm right now. And still on a Squid Game parallel is throwing stones. I actually do not know what this is called officially, but it just needs stones, which I had to go shopping for just within the compound. These are some of the perks of being in an open-air village because nature truly provides everything. I looked for soft stones because the last thing I want is to injure my hands. In the past, we used to collect really beautiful soft stones by the riverbank, but this doesn't exist anymore thanks to climate change. This was quite hard to do because we don't have the soft grass that makes it easy for this game, and I ended up with painful fingertips. If I had been on Squid Game, I definitely wouldn't have made it past the throwing stone stage because I can't figure out how to throw all the stones on the back of your hand. It normally looks easy, but you actually need a lot of focus, precision, and confidence in yourself. I also find it so interesting how there seems to be many similarities between South Korea and African cultures, but they somehow still insist on looking down on us and always portraying us as a poor continent. By this time, I was actually so exhausted and the weather looked like it was taking a turn for the worse, but I still kept on to try another type of jumping game, which we used to call in and out. This one is easy. You just need a strong string, but I just used crocheting string. You also need 2 people on 2 ends, but I am doing this alone and didn't want to disturb others. So I substituted people with stools, which still works well. Like high jump, the goal here is to change the height upwardly to make it more challenging. The jumping pattern is something that you can figure out to find what works for you. The bonus of these games is the workout element that they have. You're actually having fun while keeping your body in shape, and if you're doing this with friends, you're spending quality time together and creating great memories. This is why we all need to be asking questions instead of just following societal prescriptions blindly. Because if we did more of this, we wouldn't be dealing with rising cases of depression in children because the only friends they have is their phones. More people would advocate for living areas that provide ample playing grounds for children. And while I myself am an introvert, I still believe that having spaces for people to just be without having to pay for them is still important, even though I myself myself might not frequent them. And then came one of my favorites, actually, which is roasting potatoes. Roasting anything is a skill and hobby that is present in many African cultures, and as a food lover, will always be welcome as a staple in my life. This is different from baking potatoes in an oven because getting dirty is the most important part here. You need a great potato and a fireplace that uses firewood. Bury your potato in hot ash with some burning charcoal and leave it for about 15 to 20 minutes. If your fireplace is too hot, your potato will burn instead of cooking. Once you unbury it, it's time to eat it while it's still hot. Just peel it well without fearing the ash that covers your hands and eat, savoring the natural and smoky taste of the potato. This works well as a snack that helps you to wait for your meals if they are taking too long to get ready. This would also work so well for breakfast with some beans or sausages and an avocado on the side. And to end my very long and tiresome day was something simple which I modernized. And we used to call this playing house or kalongo. It's basically making your own house and pretending to be a wife and a mother. I decided to think of this as creating a picnic for myself because I'm not going to put myself into the cage of wife or mother. And so with just a shawl and an umbrella, I created my little house on the prairie where I would just sit, think, and enjoy what nature has to offer. Trying all these games that you can do as hobbies as an adult brought back the joy that I had in my brief childhood. And it reminded me of why many of us need to stop being hooked on the screens. Going out to nature, doing things that bring people together naturally, these are things we should be prioritizing. Personally, I'm trying to get myself to do things in the analog way because I'm finding that life is more interesting this way. The joy of living was never in getting instant results. It has always been in the journey that challenges us to believe in our own capabilities. Somewhere along the way we forgot about this, but reminding ourselves is the saving grace that will make life worth it.